Now, of those 26 districts of Buganda you're talking about, Museveni won many of them. If you go to Lyantonde, in Greater Masaka, you have Lyantonde, you have Sembabule, you have Mubende. I think there are some districts of Buganda that Museveni actually won. Don't forget that. And lost many. But there are some that he won. Those where the dominant tribe are not Baganda. Bobi Wine won in predominantly Baganda districts. Now, in this election, Museveni did not only win more districts in Buganda, but even those where he lost, his numbers increased. Let me begin with an example of Kampala. Museveni got 126,000 votes, Bobi Wine got 384,000. You could multiply Museveni's vote in Kampala 3 times and you will not reach Bobi Wine's vote. In this election, Bobi Wine fell from 73%. He fell to 64, if I'm not mistaken. No, 60. Because Museveni got 39% of the vote in Kampala. Voter turnout in Kampala fell from 42% to 23%. But of that share, Museveni grew from 23 to 39.7%. Bobi Wine fell from 72 to about 60, actually 59%. I think that the worst disaster to have happened to opposition in Uganda was Bobi Wine. See, Bobi Wine moved this country in 2021 and was able to show that you can, NRM does not always rig, really. You can stop NRM rigging. In 2006, Museveni had gotten 12% in Acholi, PSG got 82%. So I used to ask people in the opposition, okay, by 2011, Museveni had grown to 40 in Acholi region when the war ended. If Museveni has unlimited capability to rig, how come you were able to defeat him badly in Acholi, UBSJ, and now he's beating you? So the same applies to Bobi Wine. When he comes in 2021, he's able to wipe Museveni out of most of Buganda. Not every part of Buganda, most of Buganda. But Museveni had always won all the districts of Buganda except Kampala and Wakiso. And by the way, in 2011, Museveni got 245,000 votes in Kampala district, or Kampala city, and BSJ got 248. There was a difference of only 3,000 votes. So what is it that made Museveni always win or perform very well in Buganda that took it? What happened to the rigging machinery in Buganda? It shows that you only rig where you are strong. You can't rig where you are weak. So if you are Bobi Wine, you have to ask yourself, what is it that made me perform so well in terms of absolute votes and percentage? This time, Bobi Wine fell significantly in absolute votes. He also fell significantly in the share of votes. You see? So you were asking me, why is there that variance? The first variance is that Museveni had won a couple of districts, but his performance across the whole of Uganda increased. It is simple like where he did not beat Bobi Wine, the margins in the previous election had been very high. But Museveni made a comeback. And there are 3 reasons I can attribute this to. The first and most important is not what Museveni did, but what Bobi Wine did not do. After the election, Bobi Wine went to sleep. Where Museveni, after the election, was trying to reach out to old friends and alliances, to reach out to them, to Mengo, to Rubaga and others, bribe some, cajole others, try to win many and intimidate a few and blackmail the rest. Bobi Wine is sleeping in his bed. I want the panelists here to tell me, do you guys know any activities Bobi Wine had between 2021 and 2025 to endear himself to voters? Instead, he started calling with this guy Impuga. Mathias Impuga. Mathias Impuga is a very powerful politician in Buganda. People underestimate that. And has very strong links with Mengo, which had helped Bobi Wine win. Because of loss of Mathias Impuga, he alienated large sections of the people at Mengo. I don't know whether people followed the radio stations. CBS campaigned actively for Bobi Wine in 2021. Did you follow that? In this election, they were lukewarm. They didn't oppose him, but they never campaigned for him. They never made a strong case for him. So that's a very important platform for mobilization and reaching out to the population, which he lost because he lost Mathias Impuga. So while he was busy wrecking his own house, Museveni was building his. If I'm not mistaken, in that discussion on bad natives, I mentioned that voter turnout will be something like 45%, and Museveni will get about 65% or 45%. I believe that actual voter turnout could even have been 45 or 40. Yeah, because in this election, the opposition, NUP, was very weak and absent on most of the polling stations across the country. The likelihood that in very many NRM strongholds, because there was no voter verification biometric system used, opportunities for NRM people to tick, for the president and the MPs to exploit the process, also tick for themselves, were very high. It's very possible that anything between 1.5 to 2 million votes were of people who did not show up, but voted. Also, I want to put a caveat on what I say. It is not always the case that because they ticked for somebody, it means he was not a potential supporter. He may be a potential supporter, a real supporter who did not show up. And I've seen this in NRM strongholds. If you go to the Kato corridor, Nakaseke, those areas of Sembabele, which are Kiankwas, where the Balalu, and other areas in Sinjiro, where you find high concentrations of NRM support, they could say, hey, how come Mukazambile did not show up? Okay, they vote for him. Do you see? They vote for them. It happens so often. That does not reflect a weakness on the part of the rigging party. It reflects overwhelming strength. That if the opposition has a polling agent, he is a lukewarm supporter of the opposition, they give him 50K, he sends the declaration forms, or in most cases, I need new people to be honest. I don't think they were in more than 35% of the polling stations in the country. So if you cannot even get a polling agent at a station, how do you expect to get the vote? So that is the first thing, that voter turnout was much less than 52%. I suspect could be anything between 40 to 45%. In fact, I'm even shocked that Bobi Wine got 2.7 million votes.
24%.
Let's say 24.7, which is roughly 25. I want to round up to the nearest 10th. He got 25%. It means that maybe in areas where he's strong also did the same thing. Remember that it is the opposition, people who have been in the opposition can say this, where they're also strong and they have that kind of cultural and political strength, they will take the ballots of those who have not shown up. Maybe Bobi Wine got 2 million votes, Museveni got 6 million votes. Museveni got 7.9, but maybe he got 6. 1.9 are extras. Bobi Wine is 700 or 1 million are extras. But by and large, what you see as the outcome is a sign of the relative strength of these candidates. Now, of course, in Uganda's history, we don't have members of parliament being re-elected. I'm going to do statistics. I've not yet finished them. I was working on them today. How many members of parliament were in the previous house and have been re-elected? What is the share? In the last election of 2021, less than 20% of incumbents were re-elected. We need to find out how many in this were. So the loss of people like Katuntu and Semuju is therefore not surprising. In fact, Katuntu is unique in the sense that there are only 8 members of parliament in Uganda who have been elected 5 times straight. It is Kadaga, Katuntu, Elijah Cooper, Bakabulindi, this man of Remiyaga, who has also lost Chikubo, Okoto Gong, Bright Rwamirama in Isinjiro, who is a lady called Namuyanda. She's even a minister, one lady. There are 8 only. It's rare to have a person be elected 5 times in a row. So you will not be surprised that after 5, the only person who beats that record is President Yoweri Museveni. At least this isn't this 7th yes. Straight win. And so that is one factor. The other factor, of course, I also believe that I had my grandson on my left here and my granddaughter. First of all, Uganda's elections are never free or fair. If you look at the beginning of the election period from 2022 to 2025, the NRM will put so many roadblocks in the way of the opposition to win. They will block them from accessing radio stations, from opening offices, from having rallies in these areas long before elections. So I get surprised that no people complain that they steal their votes on the last day. In fact, they don't even understand the meaning of the argument. To say that they rigged them on polling day is to state that the electoral process, the electoral law, the field was all leveled and they only lost because of the balloting. No, they lose much earlier than that. The state uses all the resources of, the NRM uses the resources of the state to get an unfair advantage. What I believe is that Museveni has presented the opposition a very critical dilemma. they faced two choices, and they have failed to craft a third. Should we participate in a deeply flawed electoral process where we are certain to lose? There is not a single rational Ugandan who did not know who was going to win the presidential election. If you are Ugandan there listening to me, tell me, is there any one of you who did not know who the president-elect would be today? Okay. So the challenge for them has been, should we participate in a deeply flawed electoral process and therefore legitimize it? Or should we boycott this flawed electoral process but miss an opportunity to put our case before the people of Uganda, our grievances, our ideas about the future, to reach out to them and rally them? But in avoiding to legitimize the election, we lose two things. We are unable to present ourselves to the country and hear our grievances and our ideas, but also we sink into oblivion, because if you boycott, you cease to be of any political relevance. Now, I believe that the opposition have always been correct to say no. Let us participate in spite of the flawed process, not because we shall win, like at the presidential level, but because it gives us an opportunity to reach out to the people of Uganda and sell our case. Now, once they have made the second decision, which I think is strategically correct, they make the wrong choice out of it. Because if you have now participated and legitimized the process, you cannot turn out like BCJ and finally now Bobi Wine. You know, I once wrote an article, the BCJization of Bobi Wine. I cannot believe that Bobi Wine is walking the very same path of mistakes that BCJ made during his career. Because if you have legitimized the process by participating in it, you are bound by its outcome and you should accept it. None of the contestants can say there is anything Museveni has done in this election of 2026, which he didn't do in 2021, which he did not do in 2016 or 2011 or 2006, 2001 and 1996. If anyone says there's something new Museveni has done, they should come and challenge me. So Museveni's toolkit for every election is known. What surprises and also depresses me is that the opposition's response has been the same. They have not innovated any new idea, first on how to participate in this election, either through new maneuvers and tactics that can involve deceit, decoys, whatever it is that you can do to avoid the roadblocks that have been put in your way. A good strategist looks at the terrain and decides, here there's a swamp, how do I dodge it? There's a marshland there, a mountain, a valley, a lake, a river. These are obstacles in my way. If I'm a soldier, a commander commanding an army, a soldier commanding an army, an officer commanding an army, a priest leading their flock. We have a priest here, Bunjo. Where you go into a hostile environment, how do you ensure that you collect your flock and they are not killed? So the opposition have done no innovation at all. And finally, if they have accepted to participate, which means they are legitimizing the system, I feel like if I was Bobi Wine, and so sad I am not, after an election, I should not only concede, but I should find a way to work with Museveni. I should be the one reaching out. This is where I think this Raila Odinga man was amazing. Raila held Kenya together. These people are trying to tear it apart because he understood that, okay, the process may not be fair. I may have lost unfairly. Twice he won an election, twice he was cheated. But twice he did a handshake and found a way to work with the existing system. So you move, once an election is ended, you stop being a grievance-driven radical activist against the establishment. You become a respectable and acceptable stakeholder in the political process. And I believe that had the opposition adopted this other strategy, which actually is the inevitable outcome of them accepting to participate, they would have performed better in shaping the destiny of this country alongside the NRM than the option they have taken of defiance. And now what is the one of boycott of government, declaring it's illegal, it's criminal, he's Maduro, he's a dictator. They put themselves in a much weaker position than they would have been. You see, so because we're not going to expect a perfect election in Uganda. If Bobi Wine was in power, his agents would use the power of the state to their own advantage. Someone asked me, but if Museveni is strong, why do people take for him? Of course, you'd be naive not to see. Assuming I am Andrew Mwenda, I'm from Toro, I'm positioning myself for a big position a big cabinet position in the government. I must prove to Museveni that I did a great job for him. Museveni does not need to sanction this rigging for it to take place, by the way. From my watching of him or listening him to speak, Museveni seems to believe that he's the one who gets cheated. And when he was investing in these biometric systems, it's because he really wanted to protect his vote from being stolen. What Museveni does not know and what nobody around him can tell him is the painful truth that in areas where he's strong, his people, even if he didn't wish to, they want to prove, me in Luka constituency, Muzei, I got for you 95%. Me as the MP, I also got 90%. You can see how strong I am. Because it is those numbers that help you stake a claim on a cabinet position or the influence you exercise in the government. So people do that out of that self-interest. So finally, I see you are getting impatient with my
I wanted to
boring monologue.
you to add to, especially this split of the 26 districts of the Buganda region, 13-13, but also the old tax jumping out. What is the population saying? What are we missing that they're saying, especially with voting out the old tax?
So first of all, let me put this way. To answer that question, I think that the worst disaster to have happened to opposition in Uganda was Bobi Wine. See, Bobi Wine moved this country in 2021 and was able to show that you can, NRM does not always rig, really. You can stop NRM rigging. In 2006, Museveni had gotten 12% in Acholi, PSG got 82%. So I used to ask people in the opposition, okay, by 2011, Museveni had grown to 40 in Acholi region when the war ended. If Museveni has unlimited capability to rig, how come you were able to defeat him badly in Acholi, UBSJ, and now he's beating you? So the same applies to Bobi Wine. When he comes in 2021, he's able to wipe Museveni out of most of Buganda. Not every part of Buganda, most of Buganda. But Museveni had always won all the districts of Buganda except Kampala and Wakiso. And by the way, in 2011, Museveni got 245,000 votes in Kampala district, or Kampala city, and PSG got 248. There was a difference of only 3,000 votes. So what is it that made Museveni always win or perform very well in Buganda that took it? What happened to the rigging machinery in Buganda? It shows that you only rig where you are strong. You can't rig where you are weak. Now, of those 26 districts of Buganda you're talking about, Museveni won many of them. If you go to Lyantonde, Greater Masaka, you have Lyantonde, you have Sembabule, you have Mubende. I think there are some districts of Buganda that Museveni actually won. Don't forget that. And lost many. But there are some that he won. Those where the dominant tribe are not Baganda. Bobi Wine won in predominantly Baganda districts. Now, in this election, Museveni did not only win more districts in Buganda, but even those where he lost, his numbers increased. Let me begin with an example of Kampala. Museveni got 126,000 votes, Bobi Wine got 384,000. You could multiply Museveni's vote in Kampala 3 times and you will not reach Bobi Wine's vote. In this election, Bobi Wine fell from 73%. He fell to 64, if I'm not mistaken. No, 60. Because Museveni got 39% of the vote in Kampala. Voter turnout in Kampala fell from 42% to 23%. But of that share, Museveni grew from 23 to 39.7%. Bobi Wine fell from 72 to about 60, actually 59%. So if you're Bobi Wine, you have to ask yourself, what is it that made me perform so well in terms of absolute votes and percentage? This time, Bobi Wine fell significantly in absolute votes. He also fell significantly in the share of votes. You see? So you were asking me, why is there that variance? The first variance is that Museveni had won a couple of districts, but his performance across the whole of Uganda increased. It is simple that where he did not beat Bobi Wine, his margins in the previous election had been very high. But Museveni made a comeback. And there are 3 reasons I can attribute this to. The first and most important is not what Museveni did, but what Bobi Wine did not do. After the election, Bobi Wine went to sleep. Where Museveni, after the election, was trying to reach out to old friends and alliances, to reach out to them, to Mengo, to Rubaga and others, bribe some, cajole others, try to win many and intimidate a few and blackmail the rest. Bobi Wine is sleeping in his bed. I want the panelists here to tell me, do you guys know any activities Bobi Wine had between 2021 and 2025 to endear himself to voters? Instead, he started calling with this guy in Puga. Matthias Impuga. Mathias Mpuuga is a very powerful politician in Buganda. People underestimate that. And has very strong links with Mengo, which had helped Bobi Wine win. Because of loss of Mathias Mpuuga, he alienated large sections of the people at Mengo. I don't know whether people followed the radio stations. CBS campaigned actively for Bobi Wine in 2021. Did you follow that? In this election, they were lukewarm. They didn't oppose him, but they never campaigned for him. They never made a strong case for him. So that's a very important platform for mobilization and reaching out to the population, which he lost because he lost Mathias Mpuuga. So while he was busy wrecking his own house, Museveni was building his. Museveni is president of Uganda and a very powerful man by every measure. He has been in power for 40 years. He has extended enough patronage to buy the loyalty of so many Ugandans. But I see Museveni, this very big man and president, he's not only talking to the cardinal, the kabaka, the archbishop, the sheikh, the mufti, the whoever it is. He's also talking to people very low rank. Full figure, Kusasira, Kasuku. You know, he's winning them over. You are Bobi Wine. There are people like, let's say, Conrad Nkutu, Wafula Onyango-Bo, rather Wafula Gutu, Charles Onyango-Bo. You have Robert Kabshenga, you have Augustine Ruzindana, Amanya Msheke. They may not be your supporters. They are bishops. You go to there is the Emory Mori, you go to Gulu, there is a Ruot, you go to Toro, there is a king or associates of the king. Do you reach out to these people who had powerful social institutions within our society? Have you reached out to powerful politicians who are retired, from whom you can drink from their well of wisdom? Have you reached out to the businessmen? Because you see, when you organize rallies, you alert the state and the state services come and crush you. I felt that Bobi Wine systematically dismantled the loop because poor him, he did not know what to do. And if he knew it, he's afraid maybe of reaching and talking to people. There are intellectuals of Uganda. There are businessmen of Uganda. There are church leaders. There is Pastor Bunjo here. Did he ever come to visit your church and have a conversation with you? You see, so me, I wonder, how are you going to win over Ugandans? If you are, you know, we express ourselves through our cultural institutions. So whether it's Mengo, or these kingdoms and chieftains, they're very important for you to talk to. They're our churches and the mosques. These are very important social institutions. At different levels in Uganda, have a large evangelical movement. And these, what they call Wempe churches, the Pastor Kayanjas, some of them are allied to Museveni, but why not talk to them? They're intellectuals you can reach to and get ideas. They may not support you, but you can learn a lot from them. They are retired men, great politicians of great stature. Augustine Ruzindana, Dan Sali, Amanya Mshega. Did you talk to, did you do anything? And you expect that you will grow your base. So I feel like Bobi Wine's strategy was, I should keep preaching to the converted. But now in Christianity, you don't only, Jesus said, I not come for the righteous ones, I came for the sinners to save those. You see, the guy is so hopelessly out of depth when it comes to politics. And then he has a circle of advisors, like this boy David Rubongoya. They are driven by emotions rather than by rational calculation.
Okay.
So it is, I think that more than what Museveni did, and Museveni did a lot to block him, it is what Bobi Wine was unable to do. And where he was able to do anything, it was to wreck his own party, disagree, and break up with a certain group of people within his party, like Mathias Mpuuga, and those weakened him. So he fell in Buganda, largely because he lost Mathias Mpuuga and many others. I'm sure the Mwanga Kivumbi and the Segonas were no longer enthusiastic about him, and they could not have campaigned for him. And they also anyway ended up losing. But also, many people became dispirited about him. He was no longer, he had lost the novelty effect, but he not build a new thing that can attract, endear him to the people.